Hello and welcome back to the PNY Pro Podcast. My name is Jerome, and I'm here with my co-host Derek Ellis. And today we have Gregg Machon and John Mao from Vast Data. How's it going, guys?
Doing great, thanks. Appreciate you having
Doing
us.
good.
So I'm really excited today because I really want to get into Vast Data. We just recently announced a partnership with you guys. So Gregg, can you give us a brief overview into what is Vast Data?
I would love to, Jerome. Appreciate it. So Vast Data is it's an NVIDIA-backed company that we find ourselves in the heart of the data and the AI revolution. We built the world's what we call the first global data platform that really unifies storage, database, and containerized compute into a single scalable software platform to really help our customers, enterprises, organizations really be able to organize, enrich, apply structure, context, meaning, and ultimately value to their unstructured data. So what's unstructured data? Unstructured data are things like genomes. They could be pictures. They could be the sound of my voice or videos, research files, etc. And so we really help AI models and powerful computers make sense of the natural world in ways that human beings just simply cannot. We don't have that much compute power. And so we are multi-protocol. We work across various file protocols, object, as well as database. And we sell to organizations managing petabytes and sometimes even exabytes of storage and data. These are going to be companies that are not only in the enterprise, but they could be government agencies as well. Organizations like the Allen Institute or CoreWeave, Pixar, Lambda, MIT, NASA, ServiceNow, Verizon. These are some examples of some of the customers that we are helping them solve some of the world's hardest problems. And while we end up talking about artificial intelligence and AI today, we're equally strong in spaces like high performance computing, in data protection, in the world of ransomware, or just kind of general company or an enterprise wants to consolidate its various storage platforms. And finally, Vast really marries what we consider the performance of an all-flash file and data warehouse infrastructure, along with providing kind of the economics of an archive solution. We can be deployed at the edge. We can be deployed inside of a customer's data center. We can also be deployed at a public cloud. Just real quick background, we began selling in the latter part of 2018. We've sold over $1 billion of software in the last few years. We are growing at a clip somewhere around 2.5 to 3x compounded annual growth rate. And probably equally, if not more importantly, is the fact that we're cash flow positive, which, if you understand the world of software and technology, that's almost unheard of in our space right now. So we're very proud of that. We love hearing 3 words from our customers, and that's, it just works. Our founder and our CEO, Renan Halleck, oftentimes likes to say that infrastructure should be like plumbing. If you don't notice it, it's doing its job. And that's kind of what we like to hear from our customers. It just works.
I guess maybe for you, John, is coming off of that from Gregg, what solutions does like Vast Data provide? Like what is like the actual platform Vast Data? Like what do you offer?
Yeah, we have lots of different capabilities. Our product is called the Vast Data Platform. And inside of it, it's a software solution that obviously runs on some hardware from some of our strategic partners. But the solution at the end of the day has a couple of main components, right? Gregg mentioned one of them. We're probably most famous or well known for our high performance file and object storage system, which we call the data store. This is what most of our customers use to, store and access data on the system. And there's a bunch of unique attributes and characteristics. There's a whole new architecture underpinning this that if you're interested, you should go check out our website. We have no secrets. We show everything, put all the cards on the table in terms of how we build this. And it's allowed us to build a kind of a one-of-a-kind single namespace that can scale from hundreds of terabytes to truly exabytes, like Gregg mentioned earlier. And that's really powered a lot of the use cases that Gregg alluded to, whether it's HPC and AI from high performance computing and artificial intelligence. to data protection in this world of cybersecurity and ransomware. It's becoming more and more imperative for customers to kind of rethink how they protect their data in their organization, right? So these are kind of some of the things. We also have been over the last year and a half introducing new capabilities that are more data oriented, not just storage oriented. And a great example of that is a capability called the VAST database. And the VAST database, the way I explain it is you can kind of think of it as building on top of the VAST data store, which effectively allows us to get this exabyte scale kind of data lake type of capability, but it's combined with and kind of married with the ability to do very, very, very high performance queries like a data warehouse, right? And so those two worlds in the world of analytics tend to be very, very separate and siloed, and we've kind of combined them together. And that's very important because, AI is one example that's really propelling this, but we just hear constantly from customers that not only do they need to be able to store data effectively and affordably, but more importantly, with things like GPUs from NVIDIA, it's unlocking this new type of computational power that can actually analyze all this data for the first time. And that's really been the precipice for kind of our success in the market, as people are starting to, that light bulb moment of saying, wow, it's not just me, not just how do I capture this data, but how do I unlock the insight that's been trapped in this data for decades, right? We do have other capabilities, like Gregg mentioned as well, that allows us to now run our software in the public cloud. And there's a couple of unique use cases. We call this capability the VAST data space, which is effectively a distributed global namespace. The easiest way to think about this is imagine you or a peer in your organization was to store a file in our systems in your own data centers, and your colleagues being able to spin up a compute instance in the public cloud and be able to access that data now seamlessly, transparently, as if it was already running in the public cloud. And so there's a lot of specific use cases and industries where that's a huge help. Just eliminating all of the data management complexity that comes with that. Those are the kind of the problems that we're solving. And there's some future things that we haven't yet gone and announced in detail yet, but stay tuned. We'll be making some more announcements later this year.
So Gregg, actually going back to you, what is the industry impact of VAST data and what are your long-term goals?
As John indicated, I mean, he used the word complexity a couple different times. At the end of the day, VAST data is on Earth to simplify the management of data and really help our customers move away from storing data to truly using data and extracting superior intelligence, getting more utility and ultimately value out of that data and providing that to our customers. Earlier in my answer, I think I mentioned a few different customers that we work with. And if you'd allow me, let me just, to your point about impact, let me just give you a couple different examples from a few of those customers to highlight really the impact that we have on them. Allen Institute, I mentioned that one, I think first or second. These guys are in the business of providing scientific research in the life sciences space. And really their whole focus is on neuroscience. Their charter is to understand how the brain works to ultimately be able to solve diseases, whether it's Parkinson's disease or Alzheimer's. So they collect and study brainwave data sets in the hundreds of terabytes per day. And as John spoke, our ability to really be able to categorize that data using more of our metadata capabilities and then use things like triggers and functions to put that intelligent data into action has really helped them. And they're on record as saying we're helping them advance their research significantly into some of these, critical brain disorders and diseases. CoreWeave is another company. They're a specialized AI cloud provider. They provide GPU compute resources to truly some of the most data intensive organizations on the planet. And they chose us for the combined story of giving them massive scale, really cloud scale and AI scale, efficiency, that space efficiency, power, cooling, the ability to be able to give them a more performant data platform, and ultimately functionality. Another example, I love this one, is Pixar. So Pixar, as you know, is in the business of creating movies, animated movies. We began working with them in 2018, I think on the first movie called Soul, which really pioneered new animation techniques using what they call volumetric rendering. In 2020, we doubled down with them. They had some upgrades to that volumetric animation, and which really created about 6 times the amount of data footprint and the computational requirements that they had. So they moved over 7 petabytes of data on VAST in a single cluster. And at that time, their head of data center and IT said that the movie Elemental, which, by the way, if you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend you take a look at it. It's incredibly cool, was the world's most technically complex film ever made. And they simply could not have done that without kind of putting that data on VAST. And I think the final example is Verizon, somebody that many of us, we are customers of Verizon. So one of their use cases is kind of stadium scale, real-time, high definition, again, volumetric video. And they use GPU direct storage, and their solution can read and write video streams about 10 times faster using a vast data array than that of our competitors right now. So that's probably the impact, just a few specific examples of maybe the impact that we have had on some of our customers. From a long-term goals perspective, let me tackle that. Our founding team is incredibly ambitious. Ultimately, I think we want to create an AI operating system. If you think about some of the most revolutionary technical innovations, whether it's in the space of kind of the internet or mobile technology, or prior to that, PC technology, our fundamental belief is that it wasn't the hardware or the chips that drove kind of widespread adoption. It was the operating system. It was the operating system that made things easy for everyone to use. Ease of use drove adoption, and ultimately the adoption kind of created a trend, in many cases, those 3 revolutions that I just kind of mentioned before. And we believe in the world of AI, oftentimes today, customers still need a PhD or somebody in computational science to be able to operate a large AI cluster. We want to make it super easy for an enterprise or a cloud provider or a university to be able to operate their AI models. And that's going to require an AI operating system. So that's kind of our North Star, creating an AI operating system that's super easy and creates kind of a new revolution within technology.
Well, yeah, I have kids of my own, and I saw Elemental, and yeah, you're 100% correct. The visuals and everything within that movie was it was phenomenal. And I guess kind of going on that, pivoting on that. So where do you see like the sweet spot of like the numbers of GPUs when a customer is like deploying something to that scale, or private AI infrastructure? I don't know, that's more for you, John, but where do you see that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think there's a single answer here. I work with a lot of our AI customers all around the world, and I would bucket them into 2 kind of categories, right? So Gregg mentioned some of our cloud service provider partners like CoreWeave and Lambda. Those guys are buying thousands, tens of thousands of GPUs at a time, right? Now that's not your average enterprise or commercial customer, right? They're buying and they're standing up a service. I think in the enterprise space, the jury's still out. It's fairly early innings, but we're starting to see this shift. I was at GTC as well this year, and the one anecdote I took away from it was I didn't meet with a single academic research institute. It was all enterprises that I was meeting with throughout the week, and that kind of just, to me, it's one anecdote, but it really signals the inflection point that we've crossed in terms of AI becoming more mainstream. Having said that, people are still trying to figure this out a little bit, right? I think there is starting to see this trend in the market where enterprises that can afford to do so, they're usually coming in at somewhere around 200-ish GPUs. And there's different types of GPUs, mind you. So it's not like there's only one version or model of GPUs. And these GPUs could be oftentimes used for some basic model training or some type of fine tuning, right? So if for those who aren't familiar, fine tuning is kind of taking an AI model, some kind of intelligence that's been already created, and inserting it with some specific data about your own business, right, or your own organization, and making it kind of customized to your own company. I think that's going to be a very common pattern that we see for many enterprises, and you're going to be in that kind of 100 to 200 GPU range. And then, of course, as AI kind of takes off, the sky's the limit, because at the end of the day, if you're going to start to deploy AI into your applications and infuse your applications with these new techniques, then you're going to need GPUs on the back end to serve them, just like you have today with CPUs and servers. For web applications, for example, you're going to need GPUs for AI applications in the future. So, yeah, I don't know if that's a single answer, but that would be kind of a host of answers across the spectrum.
Yeah, I think that's a great transition, because my thought process is wondering how that kind of ties into PNY, of course, and I also wanted to ask Gregg, your perspective on the partnership with PNY as well as VAST. Can you kind of get into a little bit more detail on that?
Happy to, and again, thrilled that we have this opportunity and to kind of get our partnership message out to customers, to partners. Yeah, as you said, and kind of kicked off this podcast, Jerome. PNY Technologies you guys have been a global leader in memory and storage solutions for a long time. And in February, I believe it was, we made that joint announcement to really enable PNY to expand its portfolio through a strategic partnership with us, ultimately being able to deliver kind of cutting edge solutions to really meet the evolving needs. I mean, the needs of our customers are changing on a daily basis. And so it requires kind of a dynamic platform that is innovating as quickly as we are, along with the access that you have to customers around the world to be able to pull this off. So I think our focus is, as John said, it's definitely going to be AI. I think we're gonna find a lot of customers, as we already had put into the pipeline, around high performance computing needs. But we're incredibly excited about the early developments of the partnership. And again, it's not just an Americas or North America partnership. This is a global partnership in scale.
So yeah, we're really excited, Gregg, about the partnership as well, and seeing what we can do. And like you said, on a global scale, it's just not localized, which is incredible. So like adding on to that, because again, I feel like we have a lot of great information packed into this, and I want to keep going. So, what are some key challenges customers are facing with AI solutions?
Both John and I, as part of our job, we read a lot. We read a lot of information on kind of trends and what's taking place within the industry at large. And obviously, because we're in the heart of kind of the AI space, we pay a lot of attention to that. Recent survey, I think John and I were both reading it. It was a survey of kind of Fortune 500 CIOs. And it shows that really 9 out of 10 of those executives, those CIOs, said that AI and generative AI is going to be a top 3 priority for 2024. 85% of them effectively said that they're going to boost their spending this year over last year. But they also said that there's going to be a massive focus on ROI and making sure that they've got ROI models and a plan to kind of get that return on those big investments that they're making. And by the way, when I talk about big investments, nearly 10% of those CIOs said they plan to spend $50 million or greater in AI this year. So big spending, focus on AI. And at the end of the day, I think the executives are looking to have a strategy for AI to address things like, and this is across all industries, customer service automation, content generation, data analysis, things like improving internal operations. That could be supply chain optimization or automation. Could be things like developing new AI-powered services to improve product offerings. If you look at things like leveraging, as an example, Firefly services in Adobe, those are kinds of the projects that they're talking about in the conversations that we're in often. In many of the conversations that we have, and I think John is involved in even more than these, we believe that some of the challenges that the customers are facing is, number one, every CEO needs to have a story demanded by their board for what they're going to do with AI. Then the CEO puts the pressure on the CIO. The CIO's got to come up with a plan to be able to figure out what use cases, what applications, what workloads they're going to start moving towards AI. And then ultimately the CFO's got to figure out, how do I fund it? And how do I drive that ROI model? Challenges that all of them are facing are things like skill set shortage. Let's start with the infrastructure side first. The infrastructure to support AI is very different than, say, traditional applications. You're talking about networking that might need to have InfiniBand storage that may not be able to leverage traditional enterprise storage or parallel file systems. So there's a big tweak in terms of kind of networking and storage. So basic infrastructure skill sets. The second one would be just data center space, the power. That's another massive challenge. You're not fitting a new GPU cluster into traditional data centers. There's just not enough rack space. There's not enough floor tile space or power to ultimately be able to properly run them. So that's the second challenge. I think a third challenge gets back to skill sets, but you can invest all that money in the first two in the infrastructure. But if you don't have folks like data scientists, people that can interpret these models, build these models, create algorithms and training models and inference models to be able to extract value out of it, then all of those investments are really for nothing. So those are kinds of I would say the common challenges that we're seeing. John, I'd be interested if you think I
Yeah.
missed anything there.
No, I mean, I think it's a subset. I have a couple of points on kind of subset of what you described. I mean, it's less so today, but if you go back during the pandemic, one of the big things you guys probably know this at PNY better than anybody else, there was a chip shortage, right? And
Yes.
supply chain was very, very difficult. So even if you had the money, if you had the people, you had the skill sets, getting access to GPUs was just nearly impossible, right? Thankfully, a lot of that is eased up a little bit. So it's not like the top five kind of concerns. But if you are using, for example, the public cloud, people think the public cloud is like this infinite pool of resources, but it's not, right? It has the same physical constraints that on-premises and colo data centers have, which is you have finite resources. And so, given the hype of AI, even if you're trying to get access to GPUs in the public cloud, you're competing with 3,000 other companies also trying to get access to those GPUs. So you're always going to have this kind of supply demand challenge on the compute side, just because it's such a hot commodity. The second thing I would say is kind of probably a sub bullet of skill set on the data scientist side that Gregg mentioned. A lot of people don't understand this, but AI is not a magical application you download from the App Store and it magically changes your business, right? There's a lot of work that has to go into engineering and massaging and customizing the AI engine to actually be productive and useful for your business, right, and your organization. A lot of that preparation is really involved around understanding the data that you need to feed into these kind of tailoring exercises, right? And I think that's been one of the challenges on the skill set side is people have spent the last 30 years amassing data. They have no idea what that data looks like. They may not even know where the data lives, right? Exists. They know they got it somewhere. But this kind of data management problem is a huge one that organizations are going to have to reckon with. Just because if you don't kind of get your data in a house in order, there's not anything you're going to be able to do that's going to solve this problem for your specific business, right? And I think that's going to be kind of one of the challenges for data science teams is kind of sifting through all of this data, inventorying all of this data, right? Understanding what's useful and not useful. That's like more than half the battle in itself before you actually get into the art and the science behind AI itself. So yeah, so those are kind of two more I would tackle on is some of the challenges people face today with any kind of AI solution, and just even from an AI strategy perspective as well.
That's really great information, John. So I want to do a quick little wrap up. So Gregg, is there anything that you can tell me a little bit more about VAST that we didn't know, or is there any closing thoughts that you want to leave us with?
Yeah, number one, extremely excited about the partnership, and we hope that the folks listening to this will take advantage of the fact that we've got an incredibly strong partnership and a lot of unique capabilities together that I think can help a lot of the listeners out there, the challenges that they're facing today, particularly if they're going down the path of, launching an AI initiative. In fact, we've got AI workshops that we can conduct. I'll give you my email, super easy, GM as in Mary at vastdata.com. Contact me and we'll put you in touch with a team to kind of conduct a design workshop. I think the other thing that I didn't want to mislead anybody on the call because we talked about some big customers out there. I don't want people to think that vast data is just relevant to the very largest from an employee count or from a revenue count organizations out there in the world. In fact, we're working with organizations large and small, but I think the unique common denominator is that they're customers that are managing an immense amount of data, and they're doing something really interesting with that data. As an example, we just sold an exabyte in the AI use case as a software license to a company with less than 30 people who didn't have a company or a funding model 12 months ago. Kind of highlights the point that you don't necessarily need to be around for the last 50 years and doing $100 billion in revenues. As long as you've got a lot of data out there, you're doing something interesting we're relevant. So no, I just wanted, probably those are the 2 points that I'd like to kind of close with.
Sounds great. And John, I'll ask you the same question. Is there anything that you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Gregg mentioned is very funny because I was just thinking about who that customer was, and I know, but even some of our earlier customers, they started small with us, but they blossomed and grown into mega customers of ours over the years, right? And so I think for those that are partners of PNY and VAST out listening to this, right, there's a lot of different use cases that VAST is really well suited for. AI, of course, is the hottest thing in the market right now. It's on everyone's lips. But if you look across your customers and your organization's kind of infrastructure and data center footprints, I guarantee you there's going to be at least one, oftentimes 2, 3, 4, 5 different examples of applications, of use cases that we can easily help consolidate. And that consolidation at the end of the day is part of the simplification message that Gregg and I harped on earlier on, right? Is how do we make it simpler, not only to manage, right, eliminating all of these different systems that customers have had to rely on in the past. At the same time, when you consolidate, it means you can actually hopefully have a better handle on your data and make use of it in the future. Even if you're not doing AI today, you can make a pretty confident bet that it's going to come sometime in the future for you. So getting your data in order, getting your data strategy simplified is, I think, a huge consideration. Hopefully everyone out there will listen to.
Well, yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much to Gregg as well as John for taking your time out to be on this podcast. So Derek, can you tell the audience where everyone can reach us?
Yes, you can follow PNY Pro and Vast Data on all social media platforms. If you're a visual person, you want to watch a video, you can check it out on the PNY Pro YouTube channel. And if you'd like to learn more about this partnership, you can visit pny.com/vast. Gregg and John, thank you so much again for being on this episode, and we look forward to having you on a future episode.
Looking forward to it, guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
All right, wraps up another episode. We'll see you later.